Hello, Professor Hanke. Thank you for joining us today.
Good to be with you.
My first question is Deutsche Bank the next Lehman moment?
Probably not. A couple of points here that are important to realize. Number one, Lehman was not a bank. Deutsche Bank is a bank. The second thing is that the monetary conditions now in the world are quite different than they were when Lehman went down in September of 2008. If you look at monetary conditions starting from July of 2008 until November, July to November, the U.S. dollar soared in value against the euro. The euro went down by almost 20% against the dollar. The second thing, the price of gold collapsed about 20% in that period of time from July to November of 2008. And oil, of course, completely collapsed. It went down 57% over that period of time. Now, that suggests to me, as a supply-side economist, that the monetary policy in the United States was way too tight, and in fact was the main cause for Lehman going down and all the subsequent troubles that we've had. So the crisis we had with Lehman was really caused by the central bank in the United States and U.S. policy. At present, the situation looks pretty good. If you look at broad money growth throughout the world, in the U.S., year over year, it's running a little over 4%. China, 11.5%. Eurozone, a little over 5%. India, 10.5%. The UK, 7.3%. And after the Brexit, they really loosened up. The last 3 months has been growing at about 11% in the UK. So monetary conditions are very suitable for global expansion. I didn't mention Japan. Japan is the only laggard there, with monetary growth only a little below 3% year over year. So that's the glass half full. The glass half empty is Deutsche Bank's fundamental problem, and that I discovered in 1994, working with Nobel laureate Merton Miller and one of our students at the time, Dr. Christopher Culp. We looked at what Deutsche Bank did to Metallgesellschaft. Metallgesellschaft, as you know, was a big industrial giant at the time in Germany. They had sold oil on long-term contracts in the United States between 5 and 10 years ahead, and they'd hedged those positions. And Deutsche Bank didn't understand the hedges. Deutsche Bank didn't understand derivatives. Deutsche Bank didn't know what they were doing. And they pulled the credit line from Metallgesellschaft on all these perfectly good hedges, and it caused Metallgesellschaft a $1.3 billion loss. That, at the time, was the largest derivatives loss in the history that we had. Now, that was Deutsche Bank, and completely Deutsche Bank's fault. And at about that time, Deutsche Bank went marching ahead and went to London and got very big in derivatives business, which are very big in right now. They've got almost 30 billion euros of derivatives on their balance sheet on the asset side that no one can even price. There isn't even a price. There isn't even a market for these things. So the business model of Deutsche Bank has real problems. There's no question about that.
But this asset side stuff, isn't it a little bit obscure? I mean, this is something which could create sort of a liquidity, liquidity to dry. Aren't you a little bit upset about that?
You're absolutely right. I mean, you've got the asset side of the balance sheet that's relatively illiquid, and the liability side is very liquid. So if you have a bank panic, what happens? the liabilities, everyone wants their money back. That's the liability side, and they want it back now. And that causes a bank to then have to sell assets at fire sale prices, and maybe, due to the liquidity problem, actually temporarily become insolvent. So that's the big problem. And the problem with Deutsche Bank, the U.S. government is the one creating this problem, because they are threatening to fine Deutsche Bank $14 billion for selling and marketing mortgage-backed securities in the United States. So the problem really that set this thing in motion, it's the U.S. government, the Justice Department, not knowing what they're doing. And they could ruin Deutsche Bank if they impose this fine. Anything over about $4 billion in Deutsche Bank is really in trouble. 14 billion fine is much greater than 4. So they could ruin the bank and create a worldwide banking crisis.
In closing, are these derivatives still a weapon of mass destruction?
Derivatives are not a weapon of mass destruction. Derivatives properly used and understood are absolutely no problem whatsoever.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Professor Hanke.
Give us such a great explanation every time we have a contact.